I didn't even want to go to the party. I remember standing in front of the mirror in my small Toronto apartment, holding my eyeliner like it weighed 1,000 pounds. It was supposed to be a special night Liam's family had just finished remodeling the home he grew up in, and they were throwing a big housewarming celebration. His parents were flying in from Vancouver, cousins coming from Calgary and New York, and old neighbors from down the street. It was a big deal for him, for them, not really for me. I was just the girlfriend. We'd been together for 2 years, but lately something had changed between us. His texts had turned shorter. His kisses had started landing on my cheek instead of my lips. And that gut feeling, the one we all pretend not to hear, had been whispering louder than usual. Still, I went. I told myself I was being dramatic, too sensitive. That's what women always do when they feel a shift, isn't it? We shrink our feelings just to keep the peace. We drove in silence most of the way. Liam was scrolling through Spotify looking for the right playlist. I was staring out the window, pretending to enjoy the lights on the highway. I kept thinking back to how things used to be between us, aching out for late-night burgers, dancing in our underwear too. Bruce Springsteen making love slowly like we had all the time in the world. But those moments felt far away now, like someone else's memories. We arrived at the house, and it was beautiful in that West Coast modern kind of way. High ceilings, soft lighting, wooden beams. It smelled like cedar and warm bread. Inside, the place buzzed with energy, laughter bouncing off the walls, glasses clinking, people hugging like it was a reunion. Liam slipped into host mode immediately, greeting relatives, shaking hands, patting backs. He gave me a quick kiss on the temple and said, "Make yourself at home." It felt more like a suggestion than a welcome. That's when I saw Haraylene, his mother. She moved across the room like she owned the air in it, tall and elegant, with sharp cheekbones and a soft smile that didn't quite match the intensity in her eyes. She hugged me tightly like she already knew me deeply, not just as the woman dating her son. She smelled like vanilla and something more grown, something confident. Her voice was rich, smooth like a song you hear in an old jazz bar at midnight. "You must be the artist," she said, touching my hand. "Liam told me you paint." I nodded, surprised. Okay. Liam never talked much about my work. Okay. Elaine held my gaze a little longer than expected, then led me into the kitchen like we were old friends. It felt easy with her. The conversation flowed quickly, from books to travel to how much the world had changed. We sipped wine, standing close, laughing about nothing and everything. She had this way of making me feel seen, like she was listening with her whole body. I caught myself watching her mouth when she spoke. Meanwhile, Liam kept floating in and out of conversations like a politician at a campaign event. I noticed him sneak away a few times with his cousin, Mia, tall, flirty, the kind of girl who bites her straw while making eye contact. They'd been close since childhood, apparently. My stomach twisted every time I saw them whispering in corners, too close, too comfortable. Still, I smiled. I kept drinking, kept laughing, kept pretending. That's what we do, right? We put on a brave face. We play the good girlfriend, the guest, the woman who doesn't make a scene. But inside, I was unraveling. There was a moment just before midnight where I looked around and felt completely alone in a room full of people. The music blurred, the laughter echoed hollow in my chest. Liam was nowhere in sight. I felt like I could scream and no one would notice. So I slipped away to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the closed lid of the toilet with my head in my hands. The tile was cool under my bare feet. The only sound was the quiet hum of the vent above me. That's when the tears came, not loud or messy, just soft and steady. Not just for Liam, but for everything I had allowed myself to ignore. I thought that would be the end of the night, the part where I cry, pull myself together, and fake a smile until I can leave. But fate had other plans, because that's when I heard the knock. 3 gentle taps on the door and a familiar voice. Warm and careful, sweetheart. It's Elaine. Can I come in? And everything after that changed everything I thought I knew about love, betrayal, and the strange places we sometimes find comfort. The party was in full swing by the time I stepped back out of the bathroom. My eyes were puffy, but no one seemed to notice. Everyone was too wrapped up in the wine, the music, and their own little circles of conversation. I could hear Liam laughing in the garage, his voice loud and carefree. That laugh used to make my heart flutter. Now it made my skin crawl. I didn't want to be the jealous girlfriend. But there was no denying the way Mia leaned into him, the way his hand casually brushed her lower back. They had a history, he always said. She's just like a sister, he'd insist. No. Sister, I know, bites her lip when your boyfriend walks into the room. Still, I played along. I poured another glass of red and found myself back in the kitchen. And just like before, there was Elaine, perfect, poised like the calm center of a spinning world. She looked up from the wine bottle and smiled at me. You okay? She asked, her voice soft but loaded with meaning. I gave her my best fake smile and nodded, but she saw through it. Somehow, she always did. We stood close, our elbows touching slightly as we leaned against the kitchen island. The warmth of her body near mine felt strange, but comforting. She told me about her love of old black and white movies, the kind where people say everything with their eyes. I told her I painted those kinds of expressions, the ones where pain and passion live in the same look. She said that's what real love is, isn't it? Beautiful and brutal. And just like that, the room faded. The house full of people vanished in the background, and all I could feel was her voice sliding under my skin like silk. The way she looked at Medirect, unafraid, made my heart race in a way I hadn't felt in months, maybe years. She placed her hand over mine briefly, like she needed me to know something but couldn't say it out loud. I looked down, stunned at how natural it felt. She was so different from Liam, where he was careless and distant. She was attentive and present. She saw me, really saw me. And when she leaned in and said, he doesn't deserve a girl like you, I couldn't breathe. No one had ever said that to me. I didn't even believe it until I heard her say it. Around midnight, I found Liam's phone on the kitchen counter. He'd left it unlocked, probably drunk or too careless to care. A message lit up on the screen like a slap across the face. When can I see you again? Mia, my hands went cold. I wanted to scream, throw something, confront him right then and there, but I didn't. Instead, I quietly took the phone, locked it again, and walked back to the bathroom. I sat on the cold floor, knees pulled to my chest, tears sliding down my face. I didn't cry because he cheated. I cried because I had known. My heart had known long before my eyes saw the proof. And still, I had hoped. That's the cruel thing about love, it makes you ignore the obvious. I thought I was alone until I heard the knock. A soft, careful knock. Elaine's voice whispered, "Sweetheart." And then, after a moment, "Can I come in?" I hesitated, heart pounding. Then I opened the door. She stepped in, closed it behind her without a word. And what happened next was something I never could have predicted, not in this lifetime, not in this version of myself. Because love doesn't always come from where we expect. Sometimes it finds us in the quiet, broken corners. and sometimes shows up wearing red lipstick and a wedding ring. Elaine didn't speak right away after stepping into the bathroom, gently closing the door behind her as if she was protecting me from the world outside. The soft click of the lock echoed in the small space. We were suddenly in our own quiet bubble, just her and me, surrounded by soft lighting and the faint hum of music leaking in through the walls. I looked at her, confused and raw, still holding back the last of my tears. She didn't ask questions. She didn't offer the usual empty comfort people give when they don't know what to say. Instead, she walked over and knelt in front of me, her eyes level with mine, deep and steady. With one hand, she reached up and wiped the mascara smudges from beneath my eyes, her thumb brushing my cheek so gently it made my breath hitch. I knew something was wrong. She said quietly, her voice like warm honey. "I've seen that. Look before. I wore it for years." Her confession hit me like a wave. It wasn't just sympathy, she understood this pain. She knew what it was like to love someone who made you feel invisible. For a moment, I forgot she was Liam's mother. She wasn't someone's wife or mother in that space, she was just a woman. Like me, tired of being ignored, tired of holding it all together. She leaned closer, and I could smell the faint scent of her perfume, rich, floral, feminine, in the kind of way that made you feel safe. I didn't know who moved first. Maybe it was both of us. But suddenly her lips were on mine, soft, searching, full of emotion I hadn't felt in ages. It wasn't rushed or wild. It was slow, meaningful, like we were sharing something secret, something forbidden, something desperately needed. Her hands framed my face with such care it made my chest ache. I kissed her back without thinking, without guilt. There was no room for guilt in that moment. Just warmth, closeness, and a sudden spark of life. My back gently touched the cool tile wall, but all I could feel was her hands in my hair, her breath mixing with mine. Her touch reminding me that I was still here, still wanted. I didn't feel ashamed. I felt awake, alive. After a few minutes, we pulled apart slowly, both of us breathing heavily, eyes wide with the weight of what we've done. She straightened her blouse, her fingers shaking just a little as she adjusted the sleeve. I noticed the gold ring on her finger, catching the light proof of the world we'd both stepped away from. If only for a moment. "You deserve better," she whispered, eyes glistening with something between regret and longing. But sometimes, better never comes. Sometimes, this is all we get. Her voice cracked slightly, and before I could say a word, she kissed my forehead tender, slow, and walked out. The moment the door closed behind her, I sank to the floor, staring at the space she had just been. My heart was racing, my mind spinning. I didn't know what had just happened or what it meant, but I knew one thing for sure. Nothing between Liam and me would ever feel the same again. And I knew something else. Too, no one had ever looked at me the way Elaine just had, not even Liam. Especially not Liam. That kiss wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about sex. It was about being seen. Being touched like you mattered. And in that quiet bathroom, I felt more than I had in the past year. I didn't know if it was wrong. I only knew it was real. Asterisk, I didn't sleep that night. After the party wound down and the guests began to trickle out into the chilly air, I stayed behind, pretending to help clean up while my mind raced. Liam was drunk and stumbling, laughing with Mia as if nothing mattered, oblivious, or maybe just pretending to be. He threw an arm around me at one point and slurred, "You're quiet tonight, babe," before disappearing into the basement with her and some others. I didn't even care anymore. Not after what happened in that bathroom. Not after the way Elaine touched me, saw me, kissed me like she had been holding it in for years. I kept glancing toward the hallway, wondering if I'd catch her eyes again, but she was gone. Not out the door, just gone from sight. It was almost worse that way, like a dream that fades before you wake up. Around 2 a.m., I finally climbed into the guest room bed. Lying on my back and staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. The silence was deafening, my thoughts chasing themselves in circles. I wasn't just thinking about the Kasai, was thinking about the way it made me feel, the way my body had come alive again. I'd been touch-starved for so long. I didn't even realize it until someone finally reached for me in a way that mattered. And then, as if summoned by the ache, in my chest, there was a soft knock on the door. I didn't answer. I couldn't, but the door cracked open slowly anyway. And in walked Elaine, wrapped in a long cream robe, her hair down, her eyes tired but soft. She didn't say a word. She just closed the door behind her and came to sit on the edge of the tour. Bed? I sat up confused, my heart hammering. I couldn't sleep, she said quietly. Not after what happened. I needed to know if it meant something to you two. I swallowed hard. I don't know what it meant, I whispered. But it felt like the first honest thing in months. That was all it took. She leaned in again, but slower this time, her fingers brushing against my jaw. When her lips met mine, it wasn't rushed or confused. It was deliberate, adult. We made love that night softly, quietly, like two people trying not to be. Heard but desperate to feel. She touched me with care, with tenderness, with hunger. I felt beautiful, not in a polished Instagram kind of way, but in the way a woman feels when she's held like she's art. Like her body isn't just a thing to take but a place to worship. For the first time in ages, I let myself go. I let myself be vulnerable, seen, wanted. It wasn't wild or wrong. It was real. And when we lay tangled in the sheets afterward, I watched the way she stared at the ceiling like she was already regretting it. We can't tell anyone, she whispered. And I knew she meant it not because she was ashamed, but because the world wouldn't understand, because her son was down the hall and her marriage was still intact on paper. But there, in the stillness, I didn't feel guilty. I felt held. I felt alive. And for once, I didn't care what tomorrow would bring. Just wanted to stay in that moment with her body warm beside mine and her hand wrapped gently around mine like a promise we both knew we couldn't keep. The next morning felt like standing on the edge of something dangerous and beautiful at the same time. Sunlight poured through the window, casting soft gold across the guest bed where I lay, tangled in the sheets and thoughts. Elaine was gone. Her side of the bed was cold, her robe folded neatly on the chair. No sign she'd ever been there except for the lingering scent of her perfume on my skin. I pressed my fingers to my lips, still tasting her, still feeling the way her body moved. With mine, like she had memorized me in one night. But with the light came reality. I could hear Liam's voice downstairs, laughing, cheerful, calling out for coffee like the night before never happened. I sat up, my heart pounding, and for the first time, guilt began to creep in, not because I didn't love Liam anymore, but because I finally realized how far away from love we had drifted. And I had drifted straight into the arms of his mother, the woman who held me when he didn't, who kissed me like I deserved more. I splashed cold water on my face in the bathroom, looking at my reflection like it belonged to someone else. I wasn't the girl I used to be, the one who waited around for half-hearted affection. I had changed. Something in me had awakened, and now I couldn't ignore it. At breakfast, everything felt too loud. Liam sat beside me, rubbing my thigh like we were still us. Elaine sat across the table, her face unreadable, sipping her coffee with perfect calm. But when our eyes met, even for a second, the air changed. She looked at me like she was holding a secret in her mouth. It was maddening and intoxicating. We were two women carrying something so fragile and powerful, we didn't dare speak it out loud. After Liam went out for groceries with his dad, Elaine asked me to help clean up the kitchen. It was just us, and I could feel the silence pulsing between us. She finally spoke, quietly, her back turned to me. "Last night can't happen again," she said. "I'm married. You're with my son. We were emotional. We weren't thinking." But I was thinking. I was thinking the whole time. I walked up behind her, touched her hand, and said, "It didn't feel like a mistake." She turned to face me then, her eyes tired, glassy. "It wasn't," she said, "but that doesn't make it right." I knew she was scared of what? It meant of what it said about both of us. But I was scared too, because nothing had ever felt that real. She leaned in then, rested her forehead against mine like she was trying to memorize me with her breath. "I wish we met in a different life," she whispered. "One where I wasn't already so far gone." Then she stepped away. I wanted to stop her, hold her, say something brave, but I didn't. I let her walk away, and I stood there, hands shaking, wondering how a single night could turn my whole world inside out. What scared me most wasn't the secret we now shared. It was how badly I already missed her. How badly I wanted her again, even knowing the damage it could cause. Because when someone finally touches the part of you you've been hiding for years, walking away from them feels like tearing your soul in half. 2 weeks passed, but it felt like years. I went back to the small apartment Liam and I shared in Seattle, but nothing about it felt like home anymore. Not the worn couch, not the smell of his cologne on the pillows, not even his half-hearted apologies when I finally confronted him about the messages from Mia. He said it didn't mean anything. It was just a dumb mistake. Like cheating could be swept under the rug with a few lazy words. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, numb, realizing that what we had wasn't broken. It had been dead for a long time. And maybe I had been too, until that night in the bathroom. That night with Elaine didn't haunt Met. Stayed with me like a quiet song playing under everything. I thought about her hands, the way she held my face, like I mattered. I thought about the way she looked at Minot as Liam's girlfriend. Not as someone passing through her life, but as a woman. A whole woman. I didn't call her. I didn't dare. But late at night, when the city lights spilled across my bare walls and silence filled the space Liam used to fill, I would imagine her voice, soft and warm, whispering that I deserved more. Then one Sunday morning, a letter came, handwritten, no return address. I recognized her handwriting, instantly elegant, graceful, like her. It was short, only 1 page. She wrote that she couldn't stop thinking about me, that she hadn't felt that alive in years. She wrote that she had left her husband, not because of me, but because her whole life had become a performance, and she was done pretending. She didn't ask me to come. She didn't ask for anything. She just said, "If there's still a part of you that wants to be seen, come find me." I held that letter like it was breathing. And in that moment, something inside me clicked. I wasn't afraid anymore. Packed a small bag, left a note for Liam, just 4 words. I choose myself now. I didn't need drama or revenge. I didn't even need answers. I just needed peace. And maybe love the kind that doesn't ask you to shrink to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. I drove 4 hours, heart pounding the whole way. When I finally knocked on her door, she opened it in a simple sweater and jeans. Her hair down, eyes red like she'd been crying. We didn't say anything. We didn't have to. She reached for me and I let her. I fell into her arms like I belonged there. Maybe we didn't have a map. Maybe the world would never understand. But in that moment, wrapped in her warmth, her mouth pressed to my forehead, I knew this wasn't the end of something forbidden. It was the beginning of something honest, something flawed, but real. Love doesn't always arrive dressed the way we expect it. Sometimes it walks into a bathroom and changes your life forever.